Welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. Our guest today is UAE-based Priyanka Bijlani, a polyglot who speaks 5 languages and counting. Also, she's a poet of her newly launched contemporary poetry book, The Essence of Karak. She's just launched at the Sharjah Book Fair. She will share insights on language, culture, and the inspiration behind her poetry. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Priyanka, we do have the book right here, you guys, and I would like to ask about, can you tell us about what inspired the title Karak?
Wonderful. So
Yeah.
I was really intrigued by a lot in languages. I've been a linguist since I was a really young age, and a lot of people don't know. We know Karak as the symbol of Emirati culture, and it brings together life and culture in the Emirates. But the actual meaning is actually fortitude or strength, which emanates from medieval Arabic, Hindi, and French, surprisingly. So I was greatly intrigued by the word Karak and the metaphor it kind of played. And in my poetry, it actually reflects the people, places, and sources of inspiration that led me to write this book, and also attributed to the great visionary leadership of the UAE and its rapid development. So I was greatly inspired by life around me in the UAE.
Amazing.
That's actually inspiring.
On the morning that we're here, it's raining, and quite a tradition for rain is to enjoy some Karak. So can we enjoy it, and just maybe we'll have some on the show?
Yeah.
And if you can maybe tell us a bit of research that was needed to write the book. Were you talking to people? Where were you going? What do the history books tell us about the drink?
Great. So I think with Karak, it is become kind of more of a millennial kind of social culture. Yeah. We've seen spin-offs on it at, Lovin Dubai and a lot of events. But actually, it plays a bigger metaphor in kind of bringing people together. So I think Emirati tradition is rooted in oral storytelling. And that's something that we see kind of lost as we go into social media platforms. And that was my hope with this poetry book, to kind of revive oral storytelling in a more millennial way. So I was greatly inspired by modern Insta poets like Rupi Kaur and Amanda Gorman, who are able to express emotions in a very punctuated manner and still capture that essence and cater to millennials. And that's what I was hoping to do, have a new kind of spin on traditional storytelling methods, because I believe the power of storytelling should never be underestimated.
So speaking of millennials, I remember telling Casey at the beginning, oh, I'm a Gen Z. I'm a Gen Z, and I'm a Gen Z, because I am from Gen Z. So,
I'm a cusp.
Yeah. Yes. So when did you start writing poetry? And do you think, since you're a millennial, right? And you write on the book, books. So do you think that writing poetry on books is way more efficient for millennials to read rather than having a platform, a digital platform for Gen Z?
Sure, that's a great question. So I think since a young age, I've been very intrigued by languages. I've picked up a lot. And when I was working and living back in the UAE and I moved back, I found that learning the dialect actually helped me bridge some cultural gaps with relating to national people, including my friends. And you actually just immerse yourself more and are able to understand really the essence of life when you're able to converse in that dialect. And that's what led me to learn and pick up the Emirati dialect. But I also think we have this movement to, the Lovin Dubai show is one just example of it, of bite-sized pieces of information and news, and the way we consume things as millennials today is not longer than 20 or 30 seconds. So I think it's just about adapting with the times. So this movement towards Insta poetry, it's not restrictive to one medium in terms of print, but it can be translated into multiple forms. So whether that's reading it on social media, interacting, it's about just getting the conversation started.
So through your research, you learned the Emirati dialect?
No, I actually just picked it up as a hobby because I was greatly intrigued by languages, and I realized, although I'd lived here pretty much my whole life, I wasn't really able to speak in the dialect. I think traditionally in schools, you probably learn the MSA, the classical Arabic, but I still found it very hard to kind of engage, and I think it's kind of deepened bonds with friends as I started to pick up the dialect, which is great.
Could we do would you be able to maybe show a summary of the book or do a little introduction to the book in the dialect to kind of introduce us to what it might sound like?
Yes.
Sure, sounds good. Farah's here.
So. Yes, I would want to.
Wonderful.
May I pour some Karak?
Yes, for sure.
May as well.
We pour with the left to the right.
Oh, really? Why is that?
That's the etiquette, Emirati etiquette, Sana.
I like, by the way, the moment that you say Emirati, do you say it in such an Emirati accent? You know what I mean?
All right.
We have a small amount of Karak.
That's all right. I can go ahead and explain it. Assalamu alaikum عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اسمي بريانكا وعشت في دبي وأبو ظبي من 20 سنة الحين، وتعلمت اللهجة الإماراتية من 2 سنين. أنا مهتمة باللغات من صغيرة، والسنة الماضية قررت إصدار الكتاب والديوان الشعر مالي اسمه The Essence of Karak، وتكلمت وكتبت وايد عن وايد أشياء بخصوص دولة الإمارات، مثل الثقافة والعادات والتقاليد. وأشكركم حق الفرصة اليوم ويعطيكم العافية.
Wow! No, actually, wow.
So, not just a brief
it's
introduction.
Actually really good.
That was
Really
amazing.
good. Because, like, you know, like, again, like, I grew up in Dubai and I still struggle to even, like, have, like, the Emirati dialect, like, perfected. I don't know how to speak Emirati.
Really? I thought moving from the transition from Fusha, which is the classical Arabic, to going to the dialect was a lot easier, because even the way they differentiate between genders, if I say ish halaj Casey, I can tell the ch versus the ka. So it's very easy to understand if I'm being spoken to as a second language learner. So yeah, just became very passionate about picking it up, and I've been learning at an Emirati institute in Dubai.
We love Emirati Institute. We try and learn phrases every now and then
Wonderful.
from the show.
So do I.
You mentioned chatting with friends, but what actually captivated you, obviously living here, growing up here, about the Emirati culture, and what inspired you even more to delve deeper into it?
Yeah, I think I speak a lot about it in my poetry as well, but I think you have this merging of a lot of cultures, and you know, we know Dubai is a cosmopolitan city, but sometimes you also have enclaves of different groups, and I think learning languages help you kind of cross those bridges and merge those. So you know, I've had experiences where the police in Dubai are very friendly. They can speak almost 5 to 10 languages if you know you call the hotline, and I think vice versa. Living in this place, in this beautiful country, there should be more efforts to also bridge those gaps the other way around, which is picking up the dialect and phrases. You know, we love things like Karak, which brings social culture and life together. So why not extend that to language?
So true.
Amazing. I mean, honestly, I was just like telling Casey in our morning chat how like Karak is something I'm sure you're gonna know the phrase for جو mal nafarin.
With the weather.
Literally, you know, with the weather and so on and on and on. So the fact that, you know, you're very like, I would say, aware of that is just amazing, you know, because like, of course, like the Emirati dialect is not easy. You know, like you can know Arabic. I know Arabic. Sure. I am Arab myself, and I don't know how to speak Emirati till this day. Like maybe I can just like have like a few phrases here and there, but I just cannot speak Emirati dialect right now. And do you have like Emirati friends that go like, oh, by the way, Priyanka, that's not how you say it, that's how you say it? Yes,
that's helped, of course. The immersion in the practices is a great component of it to perfecting the language and craft. I've often walked into people and talked to them in the wrong gender, but they're very understanding, and that's part of the whole learning journey, right? The part of correction, self-correction, and also being in an accepting and immersive experience where you can grow with others and learn the language.
Speaking a little bit more on other themes of your poetry, so Bakur and local grocery stores, are there any specific experiences that inspire the themes of your poetry, or where do you look for inspiration?
Yeah, I think just life around me. So, you know, we often travel to seek out, you know, inspiration in poetry and photography, but sometimes it's in the backyard, it's in your own backyard. And growing up here in the UAE for over 20 years, I've seen the city evolve, especially in Dubai as well as Abu Dhabi. And there were just elements of my childhood that have remained ingrained in my memories and my interactions with friends. And I believe storytelling and using poetry as a medium allowed me to do that, because storytelling from oral traditions to modern iterations of it allow you to convey stories, but also preserve culture and transmit values, right? So when I hand this book to you, you also are able to glean and capture essence of elements that I'm speaking about.
So have you always been a storyteller? Because again, like writing poetry is not easy. Like writing, I would say like an article, I would say it's easier than writing poetry, because like with poetry you need to like match, you know, like the end and so on and on and on, and it's very creative in a way, right? It's very, I would say, not only creative, it's very, it has a lot of like metaphors and so on and on and on. I remember, by the way, my English teacher, he was Irish. And he would explain, like, you know, like the metaphors of like amazing poetry on and on and on. And I would tell him like, it's not easy. poetry is not easy. Like books and stories are easier than poetry because poetry it's like short, but it can, I would say, it can fill up the gap of like it's as big as like a story. It's even bigger than a story.
And I think that's the beauty of poetry. It's also open to interpretation. So my memories, growing up with the Baqala and the neighborhoods of Jumeirah might be different to Casey's experience, but what she interprets of the poetry. And I think there's a quote, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Mark Twain who said, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. So I think it's about having the stories and ideas in mind, but yeah, the craft and the refinement of the pieces is what takes time to ensure that it really captures what you felt in that moment, but also is open to interpretation when others pick up that poem.
It'd be really great. I believe there's a lot of people watching on Instagram, which is amazing. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And could we do like a quick reading so people can get a true flavor, if you will, of the poetry?
A true flavor and aroma of the Karak. Yes, sure. I'll go ahead and read the first one. It's Chai al-Yom. And a lot of my poems also have bilingual references in it to capture its true essence and its actual form. So Chai al-Yom, which means the tea today, is the first poem I wrote in this book. So I'll go ahead. These days, they say, Hal zaman mub nafs ayam awal. Not like the olden days they chime, as the clocks propel time. But we beg to differ, the leaves remain preserved, ready to brew and will brew until it simmers, producing strong Karak flavors and aromas that exude the history and heritage that run through our veins, but that can always be blended, poured, and sipped again.
Love that.
It's really beautiful.
Love that.
Thank you.
I love the fact that you read like in English and then like in like one sentence was in Emirati Arabic.
I can imagine so many people who would enjoy that book as a gift or something that they could just really just sit down and enjoy a cup of Karak with. On that note, can someone please help me open this because I feel like I'm embarrassing myself to such an extent that this cannot continue.
Sure, of course.
We have to twist it from the top, I believe.
Okay.
Becoming a poet is not an easy thing. Do you have advice for aspiring poets?
Yeah, I think in the UAE and with the movements across education systems and leadership, I think there's been a strong emphasis on the creative arts. So we see the cultural and creative industries, we've seen the rise of influencers, but we've also seen the rise of storytellers, right? That kind of infiltrate all these creative media sectors. So I definitely think when you look out there in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, there are a lot of Arabic language centers, as well as
that's free.
As well as competitions and writing competitions led by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, I believe, has a reading challenge. So I think it's just about getting out there and looking at what's there to offer. There's a lot that's run at the government level, but there's also a lot of private sector efforts and reading associations as well as writing associations. And I think that's the first step to getting inspired and meeting like-minded individuals and also exploring different avenues, right? It doesn't have to be classical print. What you do every day is a great testament to storytelling.
And it's so interesting. And what type of reactions have you had since the launch of the book? I believe, I can imagine it's a conversation starter.
Yes, it definitely is. So I think the first comment I always get is what Farah said is, oh, it has 2 languages. So I like to play around with the dialect, but also have kind of the translation embedded in the English. So it kind of relates to all readers, regardless of your background and your linguistic ability.
She even said Farah in Emirati. Literally, it sounded so Emirati. Like, if you can say it again.
Farah?
Yeah, literally.
Is that like the Emirati way to say it?
Yeah.
We're going to start changing your name now.
It's my name is Farah, like, it's like, if like, oh, if you're like, Farah, and then she said like, Farah, right? I'm not sure if I got it correct, but yeah, you got it really on point, I would say, like,
I feel so bad. I butcher your name every day. I
No,
need to
you
work on that.
don't.
I do. Anyway, Priyanka, thank you so much for sharing the message of this book with us this morning. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate your time.
Guys, it is Thursday morning and that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much everyone for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Yeah.
Ooh.